Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, much of what's been discussed across the country lately has been the extent of the wildfire smoke that's spread out of the west, and you can see that it is running up over the ridge into the Canadian prairie and spreading quite a bit across the eastern part of the United States. A couple of things to be thinking about here, and a couple of new graphics I'm working on for you is, how much does the smoke kind of extinguish some of the really great sunlight that we need at this time of year, and what is it also doing to air quality? And given the fact we've burned so many acres so far this summer, what should we expect as we move forward? Because as we look at some of the satellite imagery, just as the sun was starting to set here over on the East Coast, we can see the very smoky skies that have spread here to the east, and then the fires that are still, of course, going out in the west. The southwestern monsoon has been quite healthy, and what we're going to watch here is that the ridge that's been over the west is going to be opening up and spreading to the east with time. So with this kind of as a backdrop here, I want to show you, at least I was flying in, a picture I want to show you. I was flying in tonight to Charlotte, North Carolina, and so I'm a couple thousand miles away from the fires that are in the west, and it's amazing just to see how much the smoke has made it to the east. So believe it or not, in the background here is Charlotte. It's hard to even see. Now, as we think about this forecast going forward, there's going to be some shift in the jet stream level winds, and it's going to change this temperature pattern. This is what the last month has looked like. We're looking at temperature ranks by climate reporting district, and the heat has been primarily to the west and in the north central plains, while we've been cooler than normal across the central United States, much of the Midwest and the South. We've had a few hot days in the Northeast, but overall, this is what our temperature patterns look like. It's largely been because we've had, at times, the jet stream kind of run up into a large ridge that's been, since June, focused primarily along the western side of the United States. Now, I was thinking about this and asking myself, well, how well did the models do in predicting that? So went back and looked at the forecast from June 21st through the next month, which would take us to date. And overall, I have to say that the models did a pretty good job seeing the placement of that ridge. The things that were going on with EPO in the Gulf of Alaska, of course, are not well resolved. And it'll be important to see as we go forward what's happening downstream of this, where we have had troughing that's been from the Hudson Bay through the Great Lakes and even into the southeast. So I guess what I'm trying to show you here is that our long-range models did a decent job at picking up on the pattern that we saw here over the last 30 days. Now, thinking about that, I wanted to show you the difference in ridge positions between this year and an extremely hot year for the Midwest, which was 2012. And just take note of a couple of things. In the Gulf of Alaska, right here, between this low and this high, we get very, very strong winds, strong jet stream level flow that dips into the west. And then this particular year, 2012, ran up over a ridge that was kind of parked over the Red River Valley of the North. And that is what was a reflection of the heat and the very dry conditions that were underneath that. So when you take a look at the June 23rd through July 22nd temperature ranks from 2012, you can see the difference, right? The West was cool, and it was the Midwest and the upper Midwest and the Great Plains that were extremely hot. It also gave us a much different view, I should say, over the drought monitor. So this was the latest drought monitor released today, and overall not much change. The drought has deepened in the west, and it has expanded in the northwest, and this is what it looked like in 2012, where that ridge was placed in the central United States. Now, the reason why I discuss that is that the ridge that is currently developing over the west, here's the flow right now, okay, that one right there. I'm expecting this ridge to open up and expand to the east over the next 10 days or so. That's going to push the jet stream flow farther to the north, and as it expands into this area, we're going to be pushing some much above average temperatures into the middle part of the United States and the Midwest and even down south as well. And the best way to see that is just to step up and take a look at the forecast. So this is the 12Z European. This is released after the markets closed today. And what you're going to notice is that going through Friday into Saturday, now into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. There we go. You see the jet stream has retreated fairly far to the north. That's north of its mean position for this time of year. And we've opened up that ridge to extend from the Four Corner states all through parts of the Mid-South and into next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's going to be there for much of next week as well. So what are the implications of that change on our precipitation pattern? Well, we've been here over the last 30 days. And feel free to pause this and take a closer look at what the precipitation anomalies have been. But we've had a wet corridor from Texas through Illinois into the northeast, also hitting parts of the eastern Great Lakes and Ontario and Quebec. It's been wet all across the south, a lot of scattered daily convection and some cut-off tropical lows over Texas. But it's been in the northern plains that we've had some hit or miss storms as of late, but still overall very dry. Now the west, we don't expect to get precipitation this time of year. I'm specifically talking about the west coast because of the Mediterranean climate and the 6-month dry time period. But our soil moisture values have relatively remained the same compared to what we've been looking at over the last about 7 or 8 days, where we're quite wet to the south and through here. There's some pockets of dryness in the Appalachian Mountains, but the large area of the driest conditions extends here in parts of the upper Midwest and the northern plains, and that goes into the Canadian prairie. Now, over the last 3 days, we have had some ridge-riding storms come through that area. So we kind of have two different kind of flows going on here. This is the tighter ridge in the southwestern monsoon. There's the broader ridge that's been opening like this, and it's kind of allowing northwest flow to run over the top of some moist air here at times and really pop up some storms. It's been hit or miss, but dry to the south of there, dry to the east, and what you've got down here was what was left of a stalled out boundary that produced some locally heavy rainfall. The flow kind of comes back together and exits the northeast, so it's been quite stormy in the northeast as well over these last 3 days. And as we get into this forecast, this is what the week ahead looks like from the European model. Now, when I look at this, what I see are these broad kind of features. As the ridge opens up, we will watch this area in through here for ridge riding storms. Okay, so the flow is going to come over the top like this. There's still a Bermuda high here pumping moisture, so there'll be some moisture in this area. And the flow will come over the top of the ridge, and little short waves in that flow will initiate storms, and they will build downstream. Now, the models will do a terrible job, the European and the GFS, they will not be able to predict where that heavy rainfall is going to go. This will be isolated thunderstorm events, and once they develop, they tend to self-propagate, and we can only now cast that. We cannot forecast it. But you do notice the southwestern monsoon continues. There are flood watches out for New Mexico and Arizona, and scattered convection along the Gulf Coast will be there as well. Those drier pockets in the Appalachian Mountains continue to be dry, but this does come into the northeast, keeping that area stormy as well. Quick multi-model analysis, this is what we've got from the GFS. And to be honest, it's about the exact same picture overall. So rather than stepping through every 6 hours with the forecast type, I just want to show you how it all adds up in terms of precip, remembering that this is going to change quite a bit with time. So as that ridge opens out of the west and expands here, you'll see me as I go through Friday into Saturday, and let's just go through the weekend, that's through Sunday evening, that it will initially be this corridor in through here that has the best chances for those widely scattered storms. And as this first push comes through over the weekend, there will be a lingering frontal boundary that gets right in through parts of the Ohio Valley, back over toward the Ozarks, and eventually here into parts of Kansas. And you'll see that going into Monday, there it is, that area could see some widely scattered storms. Now outside of that, over the southeast, scattered storms, and then we have our southwestern monsoon going. But then from Tuesday into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week, we're just going to watch each day to see where the storms initiate and push through this area of the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, into Ontario and Quebec, and eventually into the Northeast. That's going to be the mainstay of our flow moving forward. Now, there is a tropical system that could possibly develop here, but it is forecast to move away from the coast. National Hurricane Center has given it a 30% chance of developing into a depression, but the forecast models are pushing that out here into open ocean. That's the direction it's going. And thinking about that, I just want to do a quick reminder. With the MJO doing a bit of a reset and going back over to phase 1 over Africa, we do expect as we start the month of August for increased activity coming off of the African coast, and therefore we're going to watch the main development region where wind shear is low right now for possible development. And remember, low wind shear is a conducive environment for tropical cyclones. Again, that's the start of August, and that coincides with the normal increase in hurricane activity. But coming back to the U.S. here and just focusing here, this is the European ensemble, next 10 days, looking at the chance or the probability of grabbing an inch of rain or more. And so what you notice is that same discussion we had, that's our corridor coming off of the expanding ridge that we have our best chances for heaviest rainfall. It'll come in the form of isolated storms. We have the same thing along the Gulf Coast, and there's our southwestern monsoon. That means if you're in the interior of the country, right in through here, there will be isolated storms in the heat of the day, but the likelihood of widespread rainfall is limited. Now, as we just exclusively look into week 2, I noticed a couple of things here. It appears we're trying to build a bit of a ridge here with a trough to the south. We call that a high over low pattern. It's a blocking pattern, and therefore the ridge might back up to the west a little bit. If this trough here develops as forecast, then the flow comes more sharply over that ridge, and what that ends up doing is giving you this type of precipitation pattern. So this is now looking exclusively at week 2 from the 12Z GFS, and you notice that it's this corridor that the models are providing the best chances for above normal precipitation. In other words, more scattered storms. Now, the ridge opening is going to be the first part of this. Expanding to the west is the trickier thing in the forecast. If we don't bunch the jet stream up over in the Gulf of Alaska, I don't expect that to happen. But the European is buying into a similar pattern as well. This is the European ensemble, again, released after the markets closed today for the week 2 precipitation pattern, and it did trend a little bit wetter. The temperatures are going to be the other factor that we're going to have to deal with, because as that ridge moves east, we're going to be seeing throughout the end of this week and weekend temperatures here going up into the upper 90s and possibly cracking 100 degrees in places. And then you notice that as it expands west, the whole flow really starts to open up to some warm temperatures, not only in the northwest, but here into parts of the western Corn Belt. Well, it will be possible to have temperatures maybe 10 to 15 degrees above average as we look at that day 5 to day 10 time period, which is the end of the month. Now, in the extended video, I discuss why the long-range European weeklies for August show much above average temperatures and also much above average precipitation. So take a look at it. What I want to finish this brief video with is the data that you see here were released before the markets open again this evening. So I hope you're getting a chance to watch this before that happens, because there could be a bit of a reaction as this did go over wetter. All right. So I'm going to stop it there. Appreciate your attention, and I'll give you another update on Monday. Thank you.